Hello, this is Greg Allison. Consider a food forest. A food forest is a sustainable, reliable way to feed yourself and feed your family for years to come with minimum effort once you get it established. It just takes a little bit of time to get it going, but it's well worth the investment because it can just keep on feeding you over and over and over again. The good thing about a food forest is trees pull from deep in the ground, and deep in the ground you find the nutrients, the micronutrients that farmers do not replenish on their land when they fertilize with NPK fertilizers. So that is a big shortage that you're not going to get from your traditional vegetables, such as magnesium, potassium, all those elements that are so critical, especially to heart health, that you just don't get in modern vegetables, which you should and you might if you go to good organic farmers who fertilize with things such as rock dust and various minerals. So, and you know, a little bit of lime helps too, but just a good rock dust is really important for regular farming, but the farmers don't use it, except maybe some organic farmers do. So you need to check your sources on that. Now the best thing to do for a food forest is to plant an orchard of sorts. Now my food forest is more of a food jungle. Now I do have some items in here like this pear, and there's some, in my food jungle, there's some stuff that comes up volunteer like these wild grapes here. I've done videos on these, and these are great to eat. I love them. These are muscadine grapes. They're a local that grows native here to the south, and they just grow like crazy and make a lot of fruit. And they're quite tasty, by the way. So, the food forest is based on a philosophy often taught in perma-culture. And perma-culture is just that, permanent culture. So, I'm eating one of those grapes. So, by the way, let's go through here, and I'll illustrate it to you. The whole idea of permaculture, there's another grapevine coming through here, wild one, is that you can, next to a forest, plant you an orchard. And then the next thing out can be your raised bed or bushes, and then your raised bed garden, maybe the taller stuff, and that would be to the direction to the south. And that's what I have. That's my direction to the south. Now I've got a greenhouse in here. I'm hoping to build a barrier here because I did plant a bunch of blueberry bushes in here, and they got ate up by the deer. Now this area has grown up some, but look, here's one of my other pear trees. Check it out. This guy is loaded. In fact, this limb is bent down, it was so loaded. We've been taking some of the ones off this limb already because it's been overloaded. Try to get it to come back up. I'm gonna have to stake it up. You can see pears down there. They're everywhere. This thing is low. It's just a little bitty tree, and she's producing. I need to top it out, and I got another pear tree back over there, another one here, and there's a little one back in here somewhere, another little pear tree, and it's got a pear on it too somewhere. So we have a lot of pear trees here. It takes a little while for it to start paying back, but once it pays back immensely. I've got a few apple trees in here, and there's a fig bush here and another ginormous fig bush back over there. And these fig bushes have already produced a lot of figs. Even though this place has grown up and got little attention, there's a cherry tree. I planted some cherry trees in here. I'm not sure if that's a wild one or one I planted. I planted cherry trees. I got a couple of apple trees, should be back in here somewhere. Now I had all this area cleared out, and in clearing it, I told the guys to dig up the plants by the roots, the trees that I didn't want in here. I had them marked, and they didn't. They cut them off. They wanted to take a shortcut. And what that meant, it coppiced them. For every little stub they cut off, 5 trees sprung up in the same place. Especially these sweet gum trees. And yeah, when all these were freshly cut stobs, I had somebody yelling. I thought they were in trouble, and I was running a skid steer back here, and I jumped off of it to run to them, and I tripped on one of the stobs, and I came close to put my eye out with another stob. Don't do that. Stobs are terrible. That's not the way to get rid of plants, especially trees. Especially the ones that can coppice and make a lot more little trees. Walk through the woods here. Hang on, guys. Let's see. Here's my worm beds. So I'm going to try to find this other. Yeah, I am selling worms. If you didn't know, this other bush back here for figs. Again, the whole principle is you can start on the edge of the woods, as long as you work on the south side. And you put your heavier stuff, your top stuff is going to go tallest, closer to the woods, and the shorter bushes farther out. Now, so I planted trees, and now these fig bushes go huge. This was loaded. A whole bunch. There's still one up there. Looks like either that or a burr. I think all the figs are out now. This thing was loaded with figs. There's a cherry tree. That's one tree I did get dug up this last year or two. This is goldenrod. I've done videos on goldenrod. No, grapevine. Well, you can eat grapevine leaves, but just eat them when they're smaller. When they're fresh. Later in the year, they get kind of bitter. Well, yeah, I am eating a pear right now. They're all right. I don't put any spray on these. So that's the advantage of this food forest idea. You don't have to spray anything. Not really, you can. But I didn't even fertilize the stuff. And here is the fig bush again from the other side. And there is a wild volunteer persimmon tree. Getting up pretty good size. Well, wild grapes. A lot of edible stuff here. A lot of it's wild, some of it's purposeful. And I am going to come in here and trim out some of the things that I don't want, such as we got some of the sweet gum out. There's still a little bit. I got to get out some of the little maples and maybe some of the little pin oaks and whatever. Clear them out, make more room in here for my orchard. And I may have to come back in here and replace the blueberries and maybe an apple tree or two. So we got to clear some stuff out and make room. Now that's all. That fig bush is taking over. And that's all right. Figs are great. I love them. So this orchard, this food forest, has pretty much been on its own. It's done a pretty good job by itself with very little care. As you can see with the pears, it's actually producing a lot of fruit. And even here in the woods themselves, I get things like wild huckleberries. And the huckleberries also produce a lot of fruit, but they don't seem to be bearing this year. Some years they bear, some years they don't. Some years they bear very well. I don't know what their secret formula is. Then they may go years and bear nothing at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and kind of clear things out a little bit and put a lot of wood chips in here. At least this is my plan. Then I like to fence off around this greenhouse and be able to run chickens in here. Here's this right here is one of those huckleberry bushes I was talking about. They don't have any huckleberries on it this year. There's a little pin oak I need to get out of here. If I put a lot of wood chips in here, that will provide mulch and be good in acidic soil, which the trees are going to love it, the orchards are going to love it. It will grow bugs. The chickens can eat the bugs. And that can pretty much feed the chickens. Once the chickens are eating the bugs, then there's your eggs. In case you're wondering, I am selling worms right now. Go to greengreds.com. Get worms. I got all kinds of worms back here now. Finally got my herd where I want them. I got good worms, worms that stay with me. They're not so crazy flighty. And I do have, fortunately here, a lot of other volunteer food items, such as this is a elderberry bush here, and it had a lot of elderberries on it earlier. Got shoemake here. Shoemake has its own advantages. Some logs back there. Got beehives. Those are not my beehives though. Planning to build a greenhouse or something out there in the not too distant future. Kind of got delayed on that project. But once again, the theory is this. You start out on the south side of the woods, which I did here, and you put your orchard, taller plants closer to the woods, and then you work your way back and put your raised beds out here. I'm getting ready to plant garlic here. And our raised beds are swells. Now if you're doing permaculture and you live in a more arid climate, you want to do swells. Swells are ISO altitude, kind of like terse rows. Anyway, you have them where you're conserving water. Here in the southeast we get so much rain, we need it to drain away actually. So it's actually good for us to have the raised beds. They work better here. Some areas you don't want that. The raised beds do help you keep them compressing the fruit, the soil. I'm saying fruit because I'm looking at this tree. Now, your orchard don't have to all be fruit trees. I highly encourage you to plant nut trees. if you've seen the video with Jason Avers, he was talking about how much you could get off of a hazelnut tree and just how productive that would be for a family. I see one little persimmon up there. This is a young tree. It was loaded with persimmons already, and I got some other older trees around in front that are really loaded with persimmons. This had quite a few of them, but I think the possums got in this tree. Hopefully that'll seed more persimmons around here. I love persimmons. They're a wonderful fruit as long as you eat them when they're fully ripe. And in case you don't know, I've got some turmeric growing right here. I've got to harvest that in a few weeks. Now this part of the garden's really grown up right now. And of course I got wild medicinals growing, like the willow trees, which is a substitute for aspirin. You see me do videos on that. There's some willow. Anyway, let me show you some more persimmons. So, plant nut trees. The cool thing about nuts is they're low carb, they're high protein, so if you don't need a lot of carbs, they're low on the glycemic scale, unlike a lot of fruit. Now, some of your fruit, like pear, are not so bad on glycemic scale. Some of your wild grapes aren't as bad as the modern tame grapes. That's something to bear in mind, guys. Something to look forward to. There's my barn. A lot of work to build that. And I got garlic up in here. Show you my garlic. You can see it. It's dark in here. Guess you can't see it. Anyway, hang it up. Whoop. Don't trip myself. Now I'm going to show you some of my wild persimmons that came up here in my yard. This thing is loaded down. Excuse me. Come on, guys. Let's look here. Show you all the persimmons up in this tree. I love these persimmons, man. They are delicious. And they've already started giving me this year. Some of them already dropped off ripe. If you eat them when they're green, they'll make your mouth pucker up. Might be a gift for kissing the girls. Or guys if you're a girl. Or whatever your fancy is in those regards. But anyway, guys, so that's what you need to know. The trees will grow and grow. You don't have to continuously fertilize, although pecans and some things do better when you put some zinc down. If you put zinc down, you get a lot more pecans. But the cool thing about tree roots is that trees pull from deep down in the ground. They pull up the micronutrients that's no longer available from most gardens. Now a good organic gardener, it's getting a little dark to see the fruit up in here now. Another thing I've told you over and over, this is growing like crazy right here. You need these roses Sharon. Now those are all going to seed there. A couple little flowers that are puckered up now for the nighttime. Roses Sharon are good to eat too, guys. It's getting dark. Just remember this. You can get a lot more nutrition out of a tree. Why? Because the tree roots pull from deep in the soil in which the micronutrients have not been depleted. I've talked about this before. In a garden where if they don't put rock dust down like any good organic gardener ought to do, and which I've done, if you don't put rock dust down, maybe a little bone meal and a little blood meal, the soil gets depleted. Especially from lack of rock dust, which has micronutrients. You need the micronutrients because we are magnesium deficient in our society, and that causes a lot of heart issues. So believe me, we need the micronutrients, and trees are one of the best sources. That's why I've said they make a good bedding for worm beds. Once you've composted them down, they're great to put in worm beds. Chips, wood chips, and leaves. But you got to make sure they're well composted. I don't know if you can see me a little better, maybe a little more light. That's what you got to do, my friends. But the trees give you that nutrition that you're going to be sorely lacking from the regular vegetables. And they keep feeding you for years to come. And you don't have to go out and plant every year. They're there. That's the beauty of it. So if you're a busy guy like me and you just don't have a lot of time, the trees will take care of your family for years and years and years to come. They do require some care. You do need to probably prune them, and I hadn't pruned those. You need to prune them and do a few little things from time to time, but it's nothing like maintaining a regular garden. Nothing like that. It's a lot easier to handle, and you get a lot of food, you get it easy. So that's the advantages of permaculture. Check it out. Y'all take care, and Greg out.